What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome to a brand new series we're starting on this channel. This is called The Creative Process. These are tools to help unlock your authentic self and creative freedom. So exciting. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it's about taking all of the tools that we dive into during our daily creative readings and different readings that I've done on here, and to put it into a very condensed form, easily accessible and digestible for you. So I'm very excited to do this. This is taking all of the things that worked for me, that helped me heal different things in my life, and making it super accessible for you. So in this first video, we're going to address how to heal yourself through life-changing questions. Now, I used to work in sales, and it was not my favorite time. But one of the things that I found was that it compelled me to be deeply curious about people. So through sales and customer service, one of the things that they often focused on was open-ended questions. Now, typical of customer service and sales, it's, getting information about the person you're selling to right size them or fit them with the right sales product, and in a way that makes sense beyond just sales. What it really got me obsessed with a little bit, though, for many years, and then it changed the way that I interact with myself too, but it's being very curious about the questions that we ask and how much information we have. Now, good questions often compel us to think outside of the box, right? They compel us to imagine something different. They also compel us to think beyond what we know. So they are, the difference between open-ended and closed-ended questions is really just ones that pull you outside of what is, so that you can think beyond it, right? To imagine something new and different for yourself. So these questions are vitally important when it comes to healing, because a lot of the time in the healing process, we don't have access to the future us. We don't have access to the future self yet. So we have to envision it. So questions give us a way to think around blocks or think through blocks, and those the energy of movement in that in the inquiry changes the nature of the block itself. Now, I dove into this further when I started to do work with it's the Akashic records, but it's also just universal consciousness, and diving into those energetic spaces to understand. And there's an author, brilliant author, whose book I'm going to put here, and I'll put others in the description below. It's fantastic. So through her work, I actually helped to shift energy in my energy centers in the past year related to my autoimmune issue. So that really helped to shift the energy there. Now, when it comes to the energy centers themselves, I highly recommend Cindy Dale's books to get a good idea of that, because they've done the work, right? They've done the work too, and you can tell through their process it's very well developed. So from a 3D perspective, I started to dive into asking questions when I was in that sales and customer service oriented role, right? And the books that I found really helpful to ask questions in that way, if you're interested, I will give you these resources. It is Power Questions. I found that to be really compelling because it helped me to understand the semantics and pragmatics, and also the discourse. This is equally informed another passion of mine, which is discourse analysis and looking at the way that language constructs meaning. So those in particular, this book helped me to see this more clearly when I was in sales and service, and understanding that the mechanics of the question inform not just what answers we're looking for, but they frame the expectations that we have of the questions that we're asking. They frame the expectations of what we expect to get, which also impacts, how we see our foundation, our sense of security, our stability. So it frames a lot of these things for us. Another great book that I read was Leading with Questions. Now, this book in particular helped me when I was doing a lot of work in the nonprofit world, and I was trying to figure out how to move different things forward in terms of projects, but also missions, and how to get at people on board to find out really where they were, so that we could speak across what would be divides, right? And divides not in any aggressive sense, but just organizations all have different priorities, and there's only so much budget to go around. So the resource then, if you look at it strictly through money, it limits what you can do. So for me, in this particular way with Leading with Questions, it was about understanding how how each resource that we had inside of us brought something to the table that money had nothing to do with and couldn't touch, that budgets went, they failed when they tried to capture that ability for us to move mountains as a collective, right? So that was something else that was really helpful. Another book that I'm going to give to you as a resource is Here, The Coaching Habit. Again, asking questions. This was one that I read when I was in sales and service, because we would, the top performers would sit with people and listen to the calls that they had, and then they would coach them. And so based on what we would do and how we would, it was sort of coach back. It was a feedback mechanism built in, so peer-to-peer coaching. And that to me was profound, because it really helped me to understand, not only when I was being coached, how to stay coachable, but how questions impacted our ability to speak to where people were and to really create change and transformation for them in the form of sales numbers, because it was about changing their perception, right? It was about changing perception. So those questions are unrelated to the Akashic Records and a lot of energy work, but I found them to be really helpful. Linda Howe has questions that she specifies in her book, and she talks first about avoiding questions of when. So I found this to be really powerful beyond the records, because we can place timelines on things, and what we can do is sort of minimize our ability to respond, because we sort of crush ourselves under the pressure of something happening now, which is a scarcity and urgency mindset, right? It creates this false sense of urgency, because things will come to us as they will. And a lot of the time, the question that we start out asking is changed by the time the energy really shifts in us. So the question that we start out thinking will be the one that we need to ask is completely unrelated to the one that we do end up needing to heal or have energy shift in a bigger way. Okay, so avoiding when questions. Another fundamental piece of this is avoiding yes or no questions, which create a binary, right? It's binary thinking. It's all or nothing thinking. It's very black and white thinking, which limits us too. It limits us to know our own power. It limits how we can conceive of a situation, and it makes for stagnant energy. So the energy gets stuck. The energy gets stuck and can't move when we ask yes or no questions, because we're not seeking to understand. We're just seeking to get the energy to stop. It's limiting that energy. And I think yes or no questions do that, because it restricts our capacity to understand. So we tend to ask these kinds of questions when there's something we don't really want to know, or there's something that we're trying to limit ourselves because there's an unconscious pattern or belief operating in the background that we don't want to know about. So we stick to these yes or no questions because it's a sense of safety for us, right? It's a sense of security, and it can present a sense of stability for us too. So she also focuses on asking what, how, and why questions. So these are really powerful open-ended questions. When we ask what questions, when we ask how questions, when we ask why questions, we are showing up curious. It's a release of blocks, because our sense of safety isn't anchored in external circumstances. Our sense of safety isn't anchored in externals that would impact us, right? It's anchored differently. So we can be curious, we can be inquisitive, we can be interested in connecting with other people, because we want to know where they are at. We want to know them. We want to know what's going on for them. It seems pretty basic, right? I'm sure it seems really, really straightforward and something that we should just know. But I feel like a lot of the questions that we're being compelled to ask of ourselves in the world, given things that are happening in it right now, do really relate to this sense of security, stability, foundation. Can we do something? This sense of personal will, like the first three chakras, really, the first three energy centers. And in asking these better questions, in asking questions that honor us, in asking questions that speak to what we can do, what this does is it allows us to shift the energy inside of us. It allows us to access a part of us that we wouldn't see it because we wouldn't recognize it, right? We're not asking for the information to find it. The kinds of questions you ask illuminates what answers you feel you are worthy of. So if you're asking questions that keep you playing small, if you ask when questions, when is this going to get here? When is that going to happen? When am I going to have this manifestation show up? A lot of it is based in lack, in scarcity. And, there are times where those answers are very pressing when it comes to resources like a roof over your head or, job, money, a lot of the physical stuff in our world. When we start to ask why, though, when we start to ask what, when we start to ask how, we open up to a whole world of possibility that would have been inaccessible otherwise. When it comes to open-ended questions, I could have asked of the autoimmune condition that I had, when is this going to go away? No answer. There's no answer from that. What can I do today to help figure this out? Completely shifted the energy. I started to understand that I could look up different books on it. I found excellent resources. I could ask, what is it that I need to do for this specific symptom? What is it that I need to do to help with this specific thing? How can I sit with myself in the energy of what's happening right now and shift things around internally, right? How can I make peace with this? Not why is this happening to me from a place of like, oh my gosh, but why is this here? What is this here to teach me, right? What lesson is this presenting me with? How can I integrate this for my highest good? How is this happening for my highest good? All of these are questions that we can ask that blast open the doors on healing and that really do help us to shift energy and also our sense of security as well, right? That again, I go back to security and stability just because it's so much of where we are. I was reading through the comments on Sonia Choquette's video about grounding environments. I'll put the link in the description below because it was excellent, but it's like grounding environments. And one of the comments talked about this and said, it's really difficult to ground your environment when everything is so in flux. And this is where I think that we're moving to more of a place where we're, and even Glennon Doyle's sister, if I can get the screenshot of it, I'll put it here. Glennon Doyle posted it on her Instagram where they talked about, everyone has this era that they live through in their lifetimes. So if we were to look at specific eras that folks are going through, they called it the Great Backslide, where when we contextualize things in that way, as opposed to saying, when is this going to be over? We can say, okay, so how do we frame this so that we can work with something here and shift the energy? If you frame it like that, what happens is the energy fundamentally shifts. So then you understand what actions to take, what steps to take, how you can heal, right? How you can start to create momentum towards healing. And that's really what this particular creative process is about, is shifting the energy so that we can heal in a way that honors ourselves, that helps us to stand inside integrity, not just with our highest vision from an abstract place, but from our highest vision from a heart-centered place that is interested in our healing because of the way that it connects to and relates to other people. So that is your first creative process. Thank you so much for watching. If this resonated, feel free to give it a like. If you would like to check out, there's other content that I have on the channel that you can connect with me through. But if this is where we part, my darling creative collective, I hope that wherever this finds you on the time-space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night, it finds you very, very well. Take care and have a wonderful